called Splash. And Splash is one of 5 new movies we'll be reviewing this week on At the Movies, the movie review program. And across the aisle from me, Roger Ebert, film critic of the Chicago Sun-Times.
And across the aisle from me is Gene Siskel, film critic of the Chicago Tribune. In addition to Splash, also on this show we're going to be reviewing Paul Newman and Robbie Benson and Harry and Son, a counterculture cult film named Liquid Sky, Federico Fellini's film And the Ship Sails On, and now Gene starts with the story of a girl they called Angel.
Angel is a trashy exploitation film about a teenage prostitute that has turned out to be a surprising box office success wherever it's played, making millions of dollars. It's the story of a young girl living 2 very different lives, an all-A's high school student by day and a teenage prostitute on Hollywood Boulevard at night. First, she is all sweetness and innocence at school.
I was wondering, well, I thought that maybe, oh, my name's Wayne.
I know.
Oh, you know?
Hmm?
Oh, well, I thought maybe, maybe you'd like to go to a movie or something.
Well, thanks for asking, Wayne, but my mom thinks I'm too young to date.
And at night, she's a hooker on one of the sleaziest streets in America.
How much you want to spend?
About $20.
You have a good night.
Hey, all I wanted to do was borrow it, not buy it.
Some real snappy dialogue there. I thought Angel was trash, despite its attempt to win our hearts with Angel's story of how her mother's dead and she was abandoned by her father, and how she is hooking until her dream comes true and her father comes back home. She's been waiting for him for 5 years, of course. Of course, this film can't just stay with Angel's sad story. That would be too classy. There's a mad slasher in Hollywood cutting up all the hookers, so we get a little sex and violence. And we get needless scenes of Angel's classmates in their high school showers. What does that have to do with anything? And then there's Angel's friends, an old Hollywood cowboy played campily by Rory Calhoun, and a transvestite played by Dick Shawn. Angel is junk.
Angel is not junk. I'm surprised that you didn't like this film. It had a lot of energy in it.
You may be surprised. I'm going to be shocked if you continue along this line.
This movie is an exploitation film. You're right about that. But it also has a lot of energy. It has very interesting character performances by Rory Calhoun, who isn't camp at all. He's a very straight Western cowboy. By Dick Shawn, who is camp. He's a transvestite, and that's a very interesting performance. Susan Terrell, yes.
Interesting. All he walks around in is in a dress.
Oh, and also creates a very interesting character, a 3-dimensional character there, and his relationship with this young girl is kind of like...
Did you think the killer was an interesting character?
Killer was a very interesting character. Cliff Gorman, the guy who played Lenny in the movie Lenny is a very good detective in this film.
You're making me want to see Lenny again.
Okay, fine. Lots of good performances. A real interesting look at this sleazy side of Hollywood Boulevard. Not as exploitation in terms of the sex and violence as a lot of other films I've seen. A real attempt to do something interesting on a low budget. I think you're being unfair to it.
I think you're being the most generous critic to this film in the whole nation. You can have that opinion, but I know of no one else that shares it.
I don't really care what anybody else thinks, just so long as I know that I'm right.
Yeah, well, that's why we have you on the show, as I mentioned once before.
Thank you very much. Next at the movies, the story of a love affair between a vegetable dealer and a mermaid.
How come she's got legs?
She has legs out of the water. She has fins in the water.
Our next movie is named Harry and Son, and I might as well start out with the bad news. This is not merely one of the most disappointing movies of the year, it's really one of the worst movies of the year. Not a single moment of it rings true, and since it wants to feel like the truth, it's really painful to sit through. The movie stars Paul Newman as a construction worker who can't work because he has some kind of a terrible disease that's never quite explained in the movie, and Robbie Benson is his loving but unpredictable son. And here's a scene where Newman embarrasses Benson at the beach.
You did it again! You little chicken! You damn little chicken! You drank the live half and left the dead half for me, didn't you? Finish it!
See you later. Nobody's perfect.
The sink. Bed was a mess. Garbage all over.
Sue? Who's hurt?
Who's hurt? Who do you think? The rats! The damn rats are hurt.
They want 4 kill. Wimp, you think they were raising a barn?
Are you through?
No, I'm not through.
You live in my house and you're treated like dirt.
I'd have thrashed the living daylights out of you.
You want to fight? Come on, let's fight. Now I can finally do something you want me to do. Come on. Ah.
They spend a lot of time spinning their wheels in fake, angry conversations like that. First they shout, then they hug and make up, then they shout again. It's all arbitrary, like hot and cold water taps. Because the movie never figures out exactly what their relationship is, or really even what their problem is. This movie has a little of everything. It has Newman and Benson living in a house in the middle of a parking lot, and Benson spending a night with an nymphomaniac, and Newman flirting with a lady pet shop owner who is also a fortune teller and phrenologist. She'll read your scalp for you, and then he's fighting with his brother, who's an Army surplus dealer, and I almost forgot to mention the fortune teller's daughter, who is Robbie's girlfriend, although she's pregnant by another guy, which doesn't prevent the movie from having a big scene where the baby is born in the back seat of the taxi cab, and I almost forgot the black auto repossessor in that whole sequence. Harry and Son isn't a movie. It's a collection of lousy ideas for about 9 different crummy TV situation comedies.
I think we can put this right up at the top of the worst movies of the year, or frankly any year with a major star like Paul Newman in it. Robbie Benson is one of, I've said this before, is one of my least favorite actors. I don't mean to insult somebody individually like this, but he really grates on me with these fake teenage boy roles that he keeps playing, and his soft little sweet voice that just begs you to like him. He's got to give us more than just that sweet voice. Want a cherry Coke pie is one of his memorable lines in this film. This film taught me so much of what films can do when they go wrong. They add all this junkola. It's the Neil Simon kind of stuff, because they don't have a relationship between the two of them.
You look at the movie and you're thinking of the story conference, and they're saying, what else can we put in? And they put in and put in and put in, but they never ask basic questions about the character. Now, I've got a question I want to ask right now. Having seen this movie from beginning to end twice, actually.
Oh, you have?
I've seen it twice. I have the following question. Did it occur to anyone that anybody acting like Robbie Benson does in this movie is probably mentally ill? In other words, is this really a story of a kid with real deep problems, or did they even realize that and just think he was a typical nutty teenager? All
right, this guy, the Newman character, has a wrecking ball. Did it ever occur to anyone that a guy who does that kind of job, the kid smarts off to him like that? Punch-out time. I mean, no, it's hug, kiss, anger. It's just a junk pile of a movie.
I think we could call this a did it ever occur to anyone type movie.
Okay. This is our next film coming up, and it's called Splash, and what a cute idea for a comedy this is. It's a story of a young man who meets a mermaid, a genuine, beautiful young mermaid. They first met 20 years ago off the coast of Cape Cod when he fell overboard as a little boy, and now she has followed him to New York City, and he has moved into her apartment. There's just one problem. He doesn't know she's a real mermaid. He doesn't know that she grows a tail when her legs get wet. And so a simple bath can be a potential disaster.
Madison?
Alan?
Yeah, of course, it's Alan. What are you doing, sweetheart?
Taking a bath?
Can I come in?
No!
What was that? Madison, are you all right?
Everything's fine.
Well, then let me in.
I'll be right there. I'm just changing.
All right, Madison, this is getting scary. You either open up this door or I'm going to break it down.
No, Alan, please.
All right, that's it.
Alan, no! No! Hi.
Hi.
Well, she fools him that time, but a simple lobster dinner also has problems.
Oops. Nice earrings.
Alan, something the matter?
No, nothing at all. You know, I was thinking, you
You don't have to leave the country.
I do.
No, you don't. See, there's all kinds of stuff we can do to get around the immigration laws. For instance, I could give you a job down at the market, and you could get a work visa. Or, you could marry like an American. And then they have to let you stay.
Our food is here.
Oh, well, I guess we'll talk about it later.
Do be careful, madam. The plate is very hot.
Hey, well, thank you. These look terrific. She's really hungry.
You know, I think more people would order lobster if they could do that. That was pretty Daryl Hannah as the mermaid. She's been in Reckless and in Summer Lovers, and she had a small role in Blade Runner. She looks great in the role of a mermaid, but when she is required to speak, the movie begins to fall apart. She isn't much of an actress quite yet. And Tom Hanks isn't particularly compelling as her friend. He tries to do sort of a Bill Murray impersonation through much of this movie. He's not that charismatic. Splash isn't a total failure, though. There is some very funny offbeat humor running throughout this movie. It has a good script. And John Candy, the big guy on the SCTV comedy show, is very funny as Tom Hanks' brother in this picture. But Splash is neither sexy or as funny as we feel its situation, its basic comic situation, should be, and that's too bad.
I agree with you. I think they ought to start right now and remake this movie and do it the way they should have in the first place. And the first thing I would do, I'd keep Daryl Hannah. I thought she was just fine as the mermaid. I'd switch Tom Hanks and John Candy. Because what they don't seem to realize is that it's basically a funny situation, and they have Tom Hanks playing it as if it really is, in a way, a love story, a romantic comedy, with John Candy as that guy. Can you get a laugh just having him look at her reading the lobster like that? He'd probably pick up the lobster and do the same thing.
Or you know who could have done this? Michael Keaton, the guy in Mr. Mom. You know, very funny. Just a little more up, because it should be flat-out hilarious.
You need a little bit, instead of Tom Hanks as the leading man, you need somebody who's willing to play it in a more weirdo sort of way. Next at the movies, Liquid Sky, about punks in New York who are invaded from outer space.
From Connecticut. Mayflower style. I was taught that my prince would come.
Our next movie is named Liquid Sky, and it's become kind of a cult classic in larger cities around the country, sort of the next generation of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. The movie takes place in the punk rock subculture of New York, which has been invaded by tiny little creatures from outer space, and they have a real strange mission. Their civilization thrives first on heroin, but then they find out that they like even better chemicals that are synthesized by the human brain during sexual intercourse. And so every time two punks go to bed in this movie, one of them is likely to evaporate and sort of be beamed up to Planet X. The movie stars Anne Carlisle in a dual role, both as a woman named Margaret and as a man named Jimmy. And in trick photography, here she is in a scene with herself. 1960s.
Yes, it is.
Acid pot movies. Watching that scene, though, helps me explain a theory that I have about the success of Liquid Sky. I mentioned the movie's weird plot about creatures from outer space who are addicted to sexual intercourse, but no matter how interesting that might sound, the plot of Liquid Sky is actually pretty boring after you first have it explained to you. Everybody seems to be a little stoned in this movie. They're kind of low-key, low-energy, sit around a lot. But a lot of people are going to this film, and I think they're taking it as a fashion show. That actress, Anne Carlisle, is on screen a lot with interesting hairstyles and weird clothing styles and new ways to paint your face. And I think there's a lot of documentary information in this movie for the well-dressed punk. So I give it thumbs up as a fashion show and thumbs down as a movie.
Yeah, and I'll go thumbs down as a movie, too. I sort of found it quite unpleasant, actually. I mean, it's made by a Russian immigrant who wanted to comment, I think, on the punk lifestyle, and he's quite critical of it, to be honest. He's showing the drug culture and some sexual abuse going on, and it's an unhappy experience. Most cult films, there is laughter going through them. I was just depressed by this film more than anything else.
That's the thing I thought, because I went to see it with the audience that is going to this film. I mean, punks are going to see the movie. I'm thinking of other cult films, including the obvious choice, Rocky Horror Picture Show. It's upbeat, it's funny, it's fun, it's cheerful, it's life-affirming. This is a real downer.
Yeah, even the Warhol films were funny in an offbeat kind of way, and this film was, you know, trying to imitate that with the scene we just looked at. But the Warhol films were either so far out or so deadpan funny, this film doesn't make me laugh.
One footnote, I think Anne Carlisle has a future as an actress.
As a future as a face photographed on film, like David Bowie, who's a better actor. But that's another story. Coming up next, the latest film from the master Italian director, Federico Fellini. Our next film is the 17th complete feature film by the great Italian master director Federico Fellini. It is called And the Ship Sails On, and it is a film photographed as if it were a very stagey grand opera, following a luxury ship full of mourners as they pay homage to a great female opera star who has passed away. Here's an early scene as we are introduced to some of the fatuous, flamboyant, and overfed people on board the ship. The time, July 1914, just before the outbreak of World War I. How do we explain those two different camera styles? I think the beginning, Fellini is a big fan of silent films. I think maybe that beginning was some kind of tribute to Chaplin, that onboard sequence. The ending part of the scene, the slow motion, is obviously some kind of lull before the storm, and this movie is about people being lulled to sleep before an obvious storm, World War I. At the same time, the film does seem to celebrate artistic achievement, at least of this grand opera star, and so my best guess is that this film at least has those two themes going on. Unfortunately, they don't mix very well, and so what we experience is sort of a run-on, aimless story of character entrances and exits, all before the film runs out of gas and we get another It's All a Circus Fellini-esque ending, which really disappointed me. I thought the beginning of the film, the setting of the stage on the boat, and some of the introductions of the characters were kind of interesting. It's just that the boat and the characters really didn't go anywhere.
I agree, and of course it's supposed to be a voyage to nowhere anyway. I think this is the same ship that we saw in his movie Amarcord that was going past. You could see it was phony. And for
1 minute we saw it, and it was beautiful.
Too long here. One thing is missing in this film that may not occur to a lot of people, and that is the music of Nino Rota, who was the composer for all of those Fellini films that he made during his great period. And if you stop to think about a Fellini film, you think of the wall-to-wall music, and it's romantic, and it's lush, and it's funny, and it has a sense of humor, and it goes from beginning to end, and it gives energy so that everything fits together. In this film, it's dead. We keep waiting. It takes too long. There doesn't seem to be enough happening. It's all elegant, but yet at the same time it's all too passive.
I think maybe just in story terms, he's introducing us to characters, and if we followed one longer than the others, it's just too many, and we just can't find this picture.
Right. It's all
through its people, at least.
It's all Fellini style and not enough Fellini storytelling. Now let's take another look at the movies that we've reviewed on this show. We both voted thumbs down on Harry and Son, the new Paul Newman movie with enough gimmicky characters for half a dozen TV shows, and 2 more thumbs down for Splash, a movie that manages to make a mermaid's love affair anticlimactic, and 2 more thumbs down for Liquid Sky, the punk rock science fiction movie that works best as a fashion show, and 2 more thumbs down for Federico Fellini's And the Ship Sails On, a great director, but on an off day. But finally, 1 thumbs up. I voted thumbs up for Angel, the energetic movie about Hollywood street people, but Gene voted thumbs down, so out of out of 5 movies, 10 votes. We had 9 thumbs down, 1 thumbs up. Not a banner week at the cinema.
Yeah, mine, and make mine all 10 fingers down on Angel. It's an amazing week when Angel is the only film that at least one of us can recommend.
Well, I thought it had a lot of energy. Anyway.
Yeah, I think you belong on Liquid Sky with the aliens as far as that's concerned.
Thanks a lot. I'll put you on Fellini's ship.
Thank you. That's all for
now.
this week. Next time we'll be back with reviews of more new films, including Hotel New Hampshire, the story of an outrageous family starring Jodie Foster and Nastasia Kinski. That's next week. And until then, we'll see you at the movies.